record while sitting on an exercise ball. It's probably going to kill me. For the longest time, I believed that in order to enjoy themselves, players need to be able to die. I mean, their characters need to be able to die. Maybe the players do. I mean, whether they admit it to themselves or not, that risk was necessary. I always loved playing RPGs that had a high mortality rate, games that would ensure that very little was needed in order to make your character keel over and have a well-stuffed grave. In my playgroup, there's one player who's legendary for being overconfident and getting his characters killed. We played a 2-year-long L5R campaign, and he died about every other session. One of his characters got killed by falling off her horse. Another one drowned in a tsunami because the water had receded and he thought it was a good idea to go down and meditate by all the flopping fishies. Oh, one time another player had gotten married, and this player, he insulted the bride, and she killed him, murdered him on her wedding day, and the local constabulary witnessed this, and they rushed in to arrest her, and eventually she died in the brawl. Great wedding, huh? Once, he lost 2 characters in the same session, and there was one D&D campaign fairly recently where he had 2 characters die in the same battle. Just picture this. He gets his drow character killed in this fight with a bunch of orcs. And then he rolls up a new character, and it manages to get it to join in a plausible and in-character way. It was pretty awesome. And so you just have this dude showing up. Hey guys, what's up? Oh my goodness, lots of orcs. Sink, I fight now! He charges into battle. Boosh! Double HP damage. We pretty much have our own little South Park Kenny thing going on with this guy. Yeah, GMs consider it like a rite of passage in our group. It's always fun to tell these stories. The stories of our characters' deaths are probably the most memorable. And that's also why Chris Perkins has that t-shirt. So I've always assumed that high mortality rate was vital for the game. Now you have to be really careful about how you go about this. You can't just dress your players in a gorilla suit and drop them in a Cincinnati zoo. And you can't just have them all bunk out in some hotel in Abruzzo and hope that an avalanche kills them. It was actually a mistake at first, but there came a point at Fiend Wake's development cycle where death did not occur very often. We had super low mortality rates in all of our playtests. But we found that players were still getting plenty freaked out. They were terrified while in the middle of a fight, and they were quite jubilant when they emerged victorious. There were some really interesting consequences to this. Players were confident that they would not die, but they were still afraid that they would lose something. So they were willing to take risks, but they still recognized them as risks. It made the game a lot more interesting. Some players who were usually a lot more cautious would be more adventurous. Some players who were a little bit more hack and slashy would grow more attached to their characters and emerge with more of a personality. So even though I was kind of annoyed that people weren't dying a bunch, I concluded that it was probably a good thing because people were changing up their play styles as a result.